I've been hearing about Holly Black's series, known as either The Folk of the Air or Elfhame, for quite a while. And I did read part of her first book, Tithe, and enjoyed it. I wound up I had to return it, so that's why I never finished that. And of course, now I can't find it. So I decided to go ahead and read this, and I'm going to bring you all along for the journey. So before I even start reading, I'm going to talk about the covers, and I'll put them up in the videos as I talk about each book in further detail. But one thing I really like, and you can't really see in the pictures, is the titles have gold leaf around all the letters, and with the colors that were chosen for the books, I think it looks really, really nice. You know, you've got the light background and then the black letters with the gold in between. It just really stands out. And I don't really like that you can't see it in the pictures because I really wish I could share that with you. And then we have the art on the actual book itself. And again, with the gold foiling, that's really, really nice. So I think these books were designed very well. And so now I'm going to actually get into the book content. I finished The Cruel Prince, which is the first book in Holly Black's The Folk of the Air slash Elfhame series. And it was pretty good. It was a lot more political than I thought. I don't know what exactly I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting quite so much political intrigue, about who would be king, and so on. But it was good. The writing was very descriptive. My only real complaint is I felt like the first half or so of the book was really, really slow, but then after that, it kind of sped up a little bit. All the political plots kind of came together, and it was time to have all that go down. So yeah, I'm still waiting on The Wicked King from the library. It should be there in a few days, so I'll go ahead and continue on with that. And yeah, that's really all I had to say about it. I didn't feel like a whole lot happened in this book, even though I did enjoy it. So I finished The Wicked King, book 2 in this trilogy, and this one picks up about 5 months after the end of The Cruel Prince, and we have Cardan as the High King. We have Jude as his seneschal, or basically right-hand person, and of course she extracted the promise that she has complete control over Cardan. And this one, there's still a little bit of the bullying. There's definitely still a lot of political plays, but this one has a lot more action, I felt like, and it really dives into her being with the Court of Shadows, and basically brings in a whole lot of new players. One thing that still bothers me is that we still don't get a whole lot about Oak, but hopefully we will in the third book, because there's some things that happen in this book that I'll discuss later on in the video because of spoilers. And yeah, so then hopefully book 3 will have more of Oak. We'll learn a little more about him. But so far this has been a pretty fun series. So I finished The Queen of Nothing today, and that is the final book in The Folk of the Air. series. I am definitely interested to continue on in the Elfame world when The Stolen Heir comes out next month. But before that, like I said, I finished The Queen of Nothing, so we're going to discuss that. And I liked it. I liked it not quite as much as I liked the other books. I will say I liked the first 3/4, and I didn't despise the ending, but I felt like it was a little rushed in certain parts. And I also felt like there were several questions left unanswered, and I'm hoping that these will be answered in the next book in the series. So this is going to end my more or less spoiler-free part. So if you don't want spoilers, stop right here. So now to get into some of the spoilers for this series. So obviously the first book, The Cruel Prince, we meet Vivienne, Jude, and Taryn, who are 3 sisters. Vivienne is a half fairy, half mortal. Jude and Taryn are her mortal half siblings. So we start out with this, and their parents are murdered by Vivienne's fairy father. The reason for this is never really given, and that's one of the things that kind of bugged me. Although he is a redcap, which is a type of fairy that basically enjoys murder and battle. Well, more battle than murder. But the scene where he killed their mother was just not very battle-like. She's trying to run, and he literally stabs her in the back. He seems to feel no remorse for this, and it just kind of felt really, really out of character for him, because he seems to be really about honor in battle, and obviously that's not a very honorable thing to do. And so we follow Jude and Taryn, and they go to school with the Cruel Prince, who is Cardan, the youngest prince and heir to the throne, and his group of friends with Narcissia, and then the other one who makes really a big impact is Locke. Now, with Locke, you find out in the very first book, he's actually courting Taryn, and her and Jude are twins. So that, I believe, has part to do with it. It's also, partially just the immortal girls that he wants to conquest. And I feel like how loyal Taryn is to him throughout the first 2 books, really, just seems very odd and strange. And she doesn't seem like a manipulative, backstabbing person. And so that kind of bothered me a little bit. Then, of course, at the end of the first book, you find out that their foster sibling, Oak, is actually another heir to the throne. And so this will lead into him crowning Cardan, who did not want to be High King. He never did, but Oak is 8 years old, and Jude basically has adopted him as her brother and wants to protect him. So this is why they do that. Then book 2 picks right up from there. Jude has sworn Cardan to her for a year and a day, and she has pretty much full control over him. She can order him to do anything. And we have found out in this book that her sister Taryn does betray her. that she basically steals half of the army for Modoc, who is their adoptive father, Vivian's father. And again, why she does this is not really said. Why she loves Locke and is so loyal to him is not really said. She does wind up married to him in this series, or in this book, and you see a lot of resentment on Jude's part, which I can't necessarily blame her, especially with all the secrets Turin was keeping, and, Turin basically betraying her by stealing the army and such. And then we also have a side plot going on throughout both of these books, and it comes more to the forefront in book 3, and that is their older sister Vivian has met a girl named Heather in the human world and fallen in love with her, and everything for that comes to a head in this book because Heather is brought to Fairyland, Elfhame, in order to be at Turin's wedding with Vivian, and Vivian has not explained any of this to her. And when there is a charm put on her, Vivian then puts another charm on her to make her forget that. And this winds up obviously driving a wedge between them because eventually Vivian does admit it. And during all of this, Cardan has also secretly married Jude, making her High Queen. And in doing so, he got her to promise to release him from his vow, and he then exiles her. So book 3 opens with Heather having left Vivian, and Jude is now living is now living with Vivian in the apartment that Vivian and Heather used to share, and doing odd jobs for fairies who live in the human world. And then eventually she goes back to Elfhame, and this is when you start to learn that Cardan really does care for her. He immediately recognizes that she's not Turin, who she's pretending to be. And the whole reason for this is that Turin has killed her husband, Locke, and this is another thing that's never explained. Why did she kill Locke? She never explains it, and I'd really like to know why. And so there's going to be an inquest, and because Turin knows she will be put under a charm, a glamour, and not be able to lie, she asked Jude to go in her stead so that when they glamour her and ask, "Did you kill Locke?" she can honestly say no. This is before she realizes that Jude has been hiding her own secrets. Turin does not know that Jude and Cardan were married, and that Cardan exiled her on pain of death. She also doesn't know that in the course of everything that happened, Jude was given a geas, which is basically a fairy gift, and this geas was that no fairy glamour could affect her. And so obviously Turin then becomes upset when she learns all this, and again, I can understand why. And so then it goes through her going back to Fairyland, going through this tribunal, and then Modoc thinks she is Turin at first, so he saves her from the tribunal and takes her up north, where they are planning to overthrow Cardan so that Modoc can have the crown. And then another thing that happens is there was a prophecy that Cardan would destroy the throne and the crown. And well, it turns out to be quite literal, because when Jude escapes from Modoc and Oriana, who is his wife. She goes to Carden, and so then Murdoch marches on Carden's palace, and then he asks for a parley, and when he comes in, there is a sword that was made, and when he stabs it into the ground, it destroys the throne. So, yeah, again, Carden has literally been the cause of the destruction of the throne, and then he breaks the crown in half. And this leads to a curse that turns him into a giant black serpent. I felt like I liked this plot point in a way, but I felt like it was also rather rushed. It didn't happen till about 3/4 of the way through the book, and they're also still planning to fight Murdoch, and Carden being freed from this curse and Murdoch being beat happens in the course of about 5 pages. I want to say it was maybe 30 pages before that when the whole curse happened and they were trying to figure out how to prevent it. And there's also not a whole lot of Oak in this book. I do know the Stolen Heir will be more about him, along with the young queen, who is being controlled by her parents. And this is another thing that's very interesting. She's being controlled by a magical leash or bridle, depending on where in the story you're at. And when Jude frees her, she thinks to herself, I'm not entirely sure with the way she's acting now and this creepy smile. Were they actually trying to control her, or did they leash her for fear of what she might do? So I said, there's a lot of interesting ideas in this book, and I feel like most of them are done very well. The plot does move rather fast, but I do feel like some things it just glances over. This is classified as young adult, and I would say it definitely fits that. There is, I'm trying to remember if there's even a single instance of cursing, and I do not believe there is. There's some violence, but it isn't super, super detailed. It's more sword fights and then just saying this person got a really bad cut. Even in the scenes where Jude's stomach is cut very badly, she simply sees blood pouring out and feels weak. There's no more description really than that. And as for any intimate scenes, there really aren't any. There's one very brief one, but it is not in any sort of detail. So I would say this would be safe for even the younger YA age group. And I'm most definitely looking forward to The Stolen Heir. And in the meantime, I do have How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories, which is a collection of either short stories or there's some scenes from the different books written from Carden's point of view. So I'll definitely be interested to get into that. But I believe I'm going to end this video here, and I will put my review for that particular book in with my December wrap-up. So yeah, I will see you in the book cave next time, and you all have happy holidays.